Hello, it's the Bible Geek, but we're starting a new program as of today. I want to, at noon, do special topics in a as comprehensive a way as I can do. And we ordinarily we will have some listener questions on this subject, and then we'll save for 6 o'clock the usual anything goes, any topic of your choice. But here I'd like the questions to be germane to the presentation. But today I'm not sure we'll have time even for that, maybe, because we have a special guest, evangelist David Skurlock, who has, I believe he's been on the show before, but you know my fading memory. And we're glad to have him this time. So the topic is, of course, the origins of Satan, or as I like to call it, Satan's Sunday School. Where you find out all about it. I am not promoting a belief in Satan, much less the ludicrous worship of Satan or any of that stuff. It's just a question of, well, since he's bandied about and people are putting up public statues of him, yeah, it might be worth discussing where the whole idea come from, because you can do it. And as Archbishop Temple once said, you can't really know the nature of a thing without knowing the history of the thing. And Nietzsche also took that approach in the genealogy of morals. Often, if you know how something came about or where it came from, that puts it in a whole new light. And that's really what I hope to do today with Satan's Sunday School, or the origins of Satan. So what I want to do is to go through the sources for the conventional view of Satan. And you know what that is, that he was a fallen angel. Perhaps he had been in charge of the world. If you hold to the gap theory of Genesis, that the earth became without form and void. Well, what do you mean? What was it like before then? And some say, well, it was a whole cosmos unto itself, and it was working pretty good under the direction of God's favorite angel, Lucifer. But then he got too full of himself, as politicians tend to do, and was banished from his job, and the whole world apparently was corrupted by him in some unspecified way. And so God pretty much erased it and started over again. That's pure, fascinating, but pure speculation. But ever since then, and the view is that Satan was speaking through the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and that he was the villain in the piece. And if you've heard me before on the Eden story, I think that's not the original intent. We'll get to some of that a bit, but I want to deal with how it evolved. And the first stage of this would be in the Bible, the book of Job. Now, again, I'm not positing what was written when, but various conceptions survive alongside older ones. And so the mere mention of an idea doesn't mean it first appeared there, and just attests that it was a belief. Okay, let's take a look at the beginning of the book of Job. And the point here is going to be, Satan in the Bible is first depicted as God's servant, implicitly one of the 70 sons of God, and that his special mission is to search out those whose worship of God is insincere. And in this case, and he homes in on those who seem to be, they're reputed to be God's favorites because of their perfection. Well, he sees it both ways here. He's suspicious. And so let's take a look at Job. Well, you can just listen, of course. Job 1, 6 and following. Now there came a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Yahweh, and the Satan also came among them. Yahweh said to the Satan, "Whence have you come?" The Satan answered Yahweh, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And Yahweh said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil?" In your travels, you must have noticed Job, in other words. Let's see, 9. Then the Satan answered Yahweh, "Does Job fear God for naught?" For nothing. Uh, Hast thou not put a hedge about him and his house and all that he has on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But put forth thy hand now and touch all that he has, blight it, in other words, and he will curse thee to thy face. And Yahweh said to the Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only upon himself do not put forth your hand." So the Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh. And then you know what happens. The Satan, which means the adversary, whose adversary? Well, he's like the prosecuting attorney. He is trying to say, in this case, "Oh, Lord, don't be naive," right? Of course, this guy toes the line and honors you because he's no fool. He knows where his bread is buttered. With these fringe benefits, I mean, you got to wonder if that's what motivates him. If you took that stuff away, I bet that would be the end of his supposed perfection. He would curse you to your face if the gravy train stopped. In other words, hasn't that occurred to you? Let's test him out. And Yahweh says, "All right, you're on. Do as you will. Just don't attack him personally." And then he does, right? He has earthquakes and marauders and so on and so on. But what do you know? Job does not abandon God. His wife says, "Well, it's over. Why don't you just forget it? You're delusional." But he says, "Hey, no, no, we're happy enough to receive the blessings from God. If he sends something we don't like, what are we going to stamp return to sender on it? No, I'll be happy to do what he says, to take what he gives." And so in verse 22 says, "In all this Job did not sin or charge God with wrong." That's not going to be consistent throughout the book, though, right? But so far, so good. 2:1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before Yahweh. So they had these periodic board meetings. And the Satan, that's what it means again. It's not yet a proper name. The adversary of the supposed righteous. And the Satan also came among them to present himself before Yahweh. And Yahweh said to Satan, "Whence have you come?" Satan answered Yahweh, "From going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down on it." And Yahweh said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there's none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast his integrity, although you moved me against him to destroy him without cause." Then the Satan answered Yahweh, "Skin for skin. All that a man has he will give for his life. But put forth thy hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face." Okay, and Yahweh said to the Satan, behold, he is in your power, only spare his life. If you kill him, we've done all this for nothing. So, verse 7, the Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh and afflicted Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Yuck. Right? And he took a potsherd with which to scrape himself and sat among the ashes. Then his wife said to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die. End it. Right? And he says, you speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? It's up to him. In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Okay, so you see, and you know the rest of it. By the end of the book, Job says, well, God says, see, told you. No matter what you did, this guy, the one thing he says, maybe the most famous statement in the book is, he says, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. Well, didn't even come to that, but yeah, so was the Satan wrong? Well, his suspicion turned out to be unfounded, but you see, his motive was he didn't want God to be mocked. He didn't want it. He thought that maybe Job was just putting on an act, but it turns out he wasn't. Well, good, all the better, because he's zealous for the glory of God. He's not, it's not like he's got some animus against Job. He just says that I doubt. I mean, this guy's too good to be true. Surely he's just in it for the goodies, right? Well, turns out not. Okay, he's pleasantly surprised, because what it means for the Satan to be the accuser is he is in charge of sting operations. He begins to have his doubts about those who are supposedly the champions of God and his biggest fans, but maybe they're not. Let's just see what they're made of. So then you jump over to First Chronicles. Let's see. I seem to have just skipped them. It's okay. First Chronicles 21. Okay, verse 1. The Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to number Israel. So David said to Joab and the commanders of the army, go, number Israel from Beersheba to Dan, and bring me a report that I may know their number. But Joab said, may Yahweh add to his people 100 times as many as they are. Are they not my lord the king, all of them, my lord's servants? Why then should my lord require this? Why should he bring guilt upon Israel? But he decides, I'm going to do it. And then God punishes him. What did he do wrong? Well, I think the issue here is the ancient practice of holy war, where they, like in Joshua, God is with them. He sicks them on the Canaanites, and they just wipe them out. And so the idea is David willing to, or the statement from Isaiah and the Psalms, some trust in horses, some in chariots, but we will remember the name of Yahweh our God. So we're not trusting in our own might and power. We're trusting in Yahweh. If God is for me, who can be against me? But doing this makes it sound like, well, yeah, trust in God, but tie up your camel. Right? We're not so sure that God will be there in the day of trouble. Let's make sure we've got the enough soldiers to beat the bad guys in case we can't rely on God. What do you mean you can't rely on God? And so God punishes him big time for this. Now, it's interesting that this is a rewrite of the same story, basically, in the earlier work, First Samuel. I think maybe Second Samuel, I forget, where it says that God made the suggestion to David, why don't you take a census? And why does this say the Satan suggested it to him? Actually, it's not really a contradiction, because the idea is the chronicler figured, well, how would God have engineered this? How would he have executed it? Well, naturally, he'd give the job to the guy whose job it is, the Satan, the one who suspects that the devotion of God's devotees is spurious and that they're just in it for the goodies. And so let's see if he really trusts God. Ooh, it turns out he was right about this one. David's faith was not that secure, and he pays for it big time. Well, now here is yet a third one. All three of these have different aspects of this. In the prophet Zechariah, verse 3, chapter 3, that is. He's one of the so-called minor prophets, which merely refers to the length, I think, and not the quality. And let's see, boy, you got to page through a whole lot of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel before you get to these guys. But let's look at him. Yeah, here we go. Next to the last book of the Old Testament. And this is Zechariah 3, 1 through 5. Then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of Yahweh, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And Yahweh said to Satan, I think there's been a typo by the scribes. I think what it originally said was, and the angel of Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you, O Satan. Yahweh, who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you. Is not this, Joshua, a brand plucked from the fire? Now Joshua was standing before the angel, clothed with filthy garments, and the angel said to those who were standing before him, remove the filthy garments from him. And to him he said, behold, I have taken your iniquity away from you, and I will clothe you with rich apparel. And I said, let them put a clean turban. That's priestly garb, you know. Oh, boy. If the Bible is inspired, why does it have such darn thin pages? That's what I want to know. Yeah. Put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of Yahweh was standing by, and the angel of Yahweh enjoined Joshua, thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, if you will walk in my ways and keep my charge, then you shall rule my house and the temple and have charge of my courts, and I will give you the right of access among those who are standing here, the angels presumably. Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, and your friends who sit before you, for they are men of good omen. Behold, I will bring my servant the branch. For behold, upon the stone which I have set before Joshua, upon a single stone with 7 facets, I will engrave its inscription, says Yahweh, and I will remove the guilt of this land in a single day. In that day, says Yahweh Sabaoth, every one of you will invite his neighbor under his vine and under his fig tree. So what's that about? This guy's record is not spotless. He is up for the job of high priest, but he's been corrupt in some way. And so Satan is quick to hone in on him and says to Yahweh, you can't hire this guy. He represents you. Look at what he's done. Look at his rap sheet. But this time, what the judgment is, yes, you're right, but we're cleansing him. And that's the way it's going to be with Israel itself. Yes, they've done wrong and suffered for it, but I'm in a forgiving mood. And so things will turn out right. And he's going to be the first fruits of it, you might say. This is very much like Isaiah chapter 6, right? Because God says, who will I send? Who will go for us? And Isaiah says, here am I, send me. But he also says, woe is me. I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell among a people of unclean lips. Foul mouth? I don't know. But the point is, I am not worthy to speak the prophecies of God. Oh, yeah, well, we can fix that. And an angel, again, is involved and takes burning coal from the altar, places it on his mouth. You can tell this is a vision, or, if he really had this happen, he wouldn't be giving any kind of prophecies to anybody, Anyway, so he is purified and is sent forth to preach the oracles of God. It's the same sort of thing. He's not fit, but God makes him fit. But you see, again, the point of Satan is he says, wait a minute. God, really, I don't think this guy is what he's cracked up to be. Says, well, he's not, but I'm going to make him so. So he is not here an evil figure when we see him first. He's God's servant. He is zealous for God's reputation. Well, he is going to be combined with other figures that are going to result in a composite figure of the devil called Satan. Here's the major source for his alter ego, the hide side of Satan. This is, and I'm talking about Ahriman, the evil anti-god of the Zoroastrian religion from Persia, which was imposed upon Jews by the agents of Cyrus, the Persian emperor. He wanted to bless the Jews. He sent back Ezra and Nehemiah to jumpstart the Judaism. The Babylonians had crushed, destroying the temple, the whole deal. He says, I'm going to bankroll the reconstruction of a temple with you guys in charge. And here, take this law with you. Well, what was that? And why did the people the Jews who were still in Judea, find it hard to get along with these Jewish leaders who came back and their new doctrine? That's where we get the Pharisees. Their name is another version of Parsi or Persian, because they had a Judaism transformed into a kind of Judaized Zoroastrianism. And this is from one of the Zoroastrian scriptures, Yasna, number 30, verse 3. In the beginning, there were two primal spirits, twins, spontaneously active. These are the good and the evil in thought and in word and in deed. Between these two, let the wise choose aright. Be good, not base. And when these twin spirits came together at first, they established life and the denial of life. And so shall it be till the world will last. The worst existence shall be the lot of the followers of evil, and the state of best consciousness be the reward of the righteous. Of these twin spirits, the evil one chooses doing the worst, while the most bountiful Holy Spirit of goodness clothing itself in the imperishable heavens, chooses truth and righteousness. And so will those who would please Ahura Mazda, that's the ultimate deity, with righteous deeds performed with faith in truth. Between these two spirits, the demon worshippers could not discern aright. To them, deception came at the time of decision. And they chose the worst mind. With violence, then, they rushed together, life in the world to destroy. Okay, so here we have two more or less equal beings. Actually, there's an ultimate righteous being, but the big action in Zoroastrianism is between the righteous and the unrighteous spirits, and they are Ahriman and Ahura. Ahura Mazda is the righteous. Ahriman is the evil. They're always battling. When good stuff happens, or when people choose to do the good, that is Ahura Mazda. When people choose evil or when adversity occurs, that comes from Ahriman, the evil one. So I'm going to be suggesting here that before this is over, under the influence of Ezra and Nehemiah and Cyrus of Persia, Jews, at least Pharisees, combined, or let's say reinterpreted Satan, originally the accuser of the dubious, the defender of God's honor, with Ahriman, the evil opponent of God. It's interesting that Satan gets his name expanded in 2nd Enoch, more or less contemporary with early Christianity, possibly intertestamental. In 2nd Enoch, it calls him Satanael, that is, adversary of God. That's not what he was originally. That's this composite. Okay, more pieces fit into this puzzle. One is the fall of the Watchers, not the fall of Satan. We haven't gotten to that yet. That's going to presuppose that Satan was the leader of the Watchers. That's not clear originally. In Genesis 6, 1 through 4, you have another puzzle piece. And you probably know what this is without even looking it up. It's the preface to the great flood of Noah. Right? When men began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took to wife such of them as they chose. Then Yahweh said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, but his years shall be restricted to 120 years, at the outside. Right? The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men that were of old, the Nephilim, apparently, the men of renown. And then it says, Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, etc. Well, who are these sons of God? This is going to be one of several apparent digressions, but keep in mind what we're trying to do here is to put the puzzle pieces in place to see how we eventually come up with the evil Satan doctrine. Okay, now Satan is not mentioned here. The sons of God are not vilified here. They're not said to be evil. Who are they supposed to be? Well, the sons of God, same ones that, God gathered periodically in the book of Job. they're not yet called angels. That was a later development, but uh, they have mated with mortal women, and that was the origin of the Nephilim. Okay, who were they? They were demigods because one divine parent, one human one. But do we have any names? Well, yes, Nimrod, the great hunter, who was associated in Greek mythology with Orion, and there was a constellation representing him. Apparently, Goliath was descended from them. He was a towering 6.5 feet tall. The King James says 9.5 feet, converted from cubits, but nonetheless, he was certainly a lot taller than the relatively shrimpy the other people of the Near East at the time. Not much of a protein diet. That's the reason for that. And so he and various other ones are named. I think Ishbibanob is one of them. And Gilgamesh, who's mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls, no doubt it was one of these. And I would even guess originally Samson was thought to be one. How did these guys? And plus, there was a whole group that were supposedly descended from him. Remember when Moses sends the spies in to scope out Canaan, and they come back kind of shaken and said, there's no way we can take these guys on. We're like grasshoppers compared to them. And they say, hey, who's really doing the fighting here, you or God? And so they have lack of faith. But who were they? They're called the Rephaim, the Anakim, and there's a couple of other words for them. And that implies that they were the offspring of the they were among the Nephilim and their descendants. They're not said to be evil yet. It's just that they're huge. And so this story must originally have been one of those ethnological legends in Genesis. It's like we see the Watusis in Africa. How the heck are these people so tall? Same thing. Well, they explained it mythologically. Well, they must be demigods. Yeah, that explains their great height and strength. And of course, they wound up defeating the Rephaim / Anakim and so on anyway. But originally, I suspect the point was that it was simply a story told to give an answer to this question: how can these people be so huge? But you can see from its placement in Genesis, it's already being reinterpreted. These people, these sons of God, surely it cannot have been okay for them to have sex with mortal women. That had to be loathsome miscegenation. And so naturally, the result must have been corruption. That's where the human race went off course. And so God said, oh boy, they're ruined. I got to start all over again. I don't think that was originally the point. Now, here is another theory that I am mightily tempted by from Russell Gmirkin in a recent book about how Genesis is dependent to a surprising degree on Plato's dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias. And there he says that independently of the Bible, in fact, Genesis probably is dependent upon him, as I say, that there was a high God who created a bunch of lesser gods, sons of God, and gave them each a nation to rule. And each of these sons were one of the Olympian deities, Zeus, Poseidon, etc., etc. And that each one of these populated his own realm, or hers, like Athena and Athens, and with his or her own created nation. And the creator, one of the Olympian gods, would marry the most beautiful of the mortals that he created, and they would reign as king and queen. And then afterward, the firstborn son would become the king, and so on down the line. But you see what happened. The deity, the divine nature, began to run dry, right? If Poseidon is fully divine and his son is half divine, his son is going to be a quarter divine, then an eighth, a 16th, etc. And by that time, when the divine nobility had run out, people were pretty corrupt and warlike, and that's why God sent the flood. Very similar to the Noah story. And the similarities don't end there, but I don't have all day, nor do you. So if that's the case, the gods mating with mortal women are still not villains. There is no fall, right? But here's what it is made of it in Genesis, or I should say in the biblical tradition thereafter. It becomes the fall of the angels, and then the rebellion of Satan. Let's take a look at the book of Enoch. It's a Pentateuch in its own right, and has a section called the Book of the Watchers. And here's the relevant material. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, curses, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. They swear, they all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual implications upon it. And these are the names of their leaders: Semyaza, their leader, Arakiba, Ramael, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramael, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakijah, Azazel, Armaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zagiel, Sampsapiel, Satariel, Turel, Jamjael, Sariel. These are their chiefs of tens. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and taught them about metals of the earth and the art of working them, gold to be made into coins, and silver and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of precious stones, and all colorings and dyes. So here they're vilified, and they are fallen angels, and Satan is not mentioned, though there is a chief ringleader, Semyaza, Semjaza. Is that another name for Satan? People usually assume so, but I wouldn't bet on it. Again, I think Satan will be merged with this character in the later biblical tradition, And let's take a look at Revelation 12:4, where indeed he is the leader. Let's get to that. Okay. Revelation. Yeah, okay. Oh, chapter 12, verse 3. Another portent appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems upon his heads. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And so forth. And then verses 7 through 9. Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they were defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. A dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. That would be Leviathan. And let me just put a mark in that. And as for the fall of the angels, you can also see a reference to it, though without Satan being the ringleader. Okay. This is Jude, verse 9. When the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, disputed about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce a reviling judgment upon him, but said, Yahweh rebuke you. I'm sorry. I also meant to add verse 6. And the angels that did not keep their own position, but left their proper dwelling, have been kept by him in eternal chains in the nether gloom until the judgment of the great day. So that's what happened to them. They were chained up in the subterranean darkness. And 1 Peter 3, verses 19 through 20. The way it should have been repunctuated and translated. Enoch went and preached to the spirits in prison who formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah during the building of the ark, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were saved through water. Okay, in the time of Noah, there were angels who fell, so that's a reference to the fall of the angels again, right? So, let's see. Yeah, now, where do we get the idea that Satan fell? Well, he is combined, his fall, such as it is combined with the fall of the watchers, of the angels, the sons of God. Here are 2 Old Testament passages that supposedly speak of the fall of Satan. I think, just to let the cat out of the bag, I think that is a mistake. though an ancient one. Let's take a look at this. 14, verse 3 and following. When Yahweh has given you rest from your pain and turmoil and the hard service with which you were made to serve, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon. And this is all technically a funeral dirge. How the oppressor has ceased, the insolent fury ceased. Yahweh has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of rulers that smote the peoples in wrath with unceasing blows, that rule the nations in anger with unrelenting persecution. The whole earth is at rest and quiet. They break forth into singing. The cypresses rejoice at you. The cedars of Lebanon saying, since you were laid low, no hewer comes up against us. Sheol, the netherworld, beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the shades to greet you, all who were leaders of the earth. It raises from their thrones all who were kings of the nations. All of them will speak and say to you, you too have become as weak as we. You have become like us. Your pomp is brought down to Sheol, the sound of your harps. Maggots are the bed beneath you, and worms are your covering. Oh, how you are fallen from heaven, O Halal, son of Shahar. Halal is Venus, the morning star, the brightest object in the sky before the sun rises. And it does with dawn, because dawn is Shahar, the winged goddess of the dawn. How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I will set my throne on high. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly in the far north where the sons of God would gather. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like Elyon, the Most High. But that's what you said. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the depths of the pit. Those who see you will stare at you and ponder over you. Is this the man who made the earth tremble? Who shook kingdoms? Who made the world like a desert and overthrew its cities? Who didn't even let his prisoners go home? All the kings of the earth lie in glory, each in his own tomb. But you are cast out away from your sepulchre like a loathed, untimely birth. Miscarriage. Clothed with the slain, those pierced by the sword who go down to the stones of the pit, like a dead body trodden underfoot. You will not be joined with them, the kings of the earth, in burial, because you have destroyed your land. You have slain your people. May the descendants of evildoers never more be named. Prepare slaughter for his sons because of the guilt of their fathers, lest they rise and possess the earth and fill the face of the world with cities. Well, this is originally an astronomical myth. It's what it's doing is trying to sort of mythologize and personify the heavenly bodies, the planet Venus, as we call it, and the sun, or the Most High God. They depict Halal, the son of the dawn, the planet Venus, as as being proud of being the brightest star in the morning sky before the dawn. It's the brightest thing you can see. And so the sun has not risen yet to compete with it. But when it does, you can't even see that star anymore because of the sun's brightness. And eventually, once you're over that, you have next morning to look to. But this has become a kind of an allegory for Lucifer, the light bearer, which this was also called, the first one to illuminate the sky. He is trying to replace God. And so the astrological reference is lost here. And they think it means a particular angel, Satan, whom they say, oh, he must have been the same as Samyaza. He engineered the fall. Now, why did he do it? That's a good question. Wait a minute. You think you can take on God? What would make you think that? Oh, yeah, here's another one. Ezekiel chapter 28. Boy, there are lots of chapters in Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Ezekiel 28. This is a similar funeral dirge for a fallen king. In Isaiah, it was the king of Babylon, but this is a later one, which has to do with the kingdom of Tyre, a great commercial mercantile center, but wicked and about to be destroyed. The word of Yahweh came to me. Did I say it was 28:1? Son of man, in other words, mortal, say to the prince of Tyre, thus says Yahweh, the Lord Yahweh, because your heart is proud and you have said, I am a god. I sit in the seat of the gods in the heart of the seas. It's an island. Yet you are but a man and no god. Though you consider yourself as wise as a god, you are indeed wiser than Daniel. And no secret is hidden from you. By your wisdom and your understanding, you've gotten wealth for yourself and have gathered gold and silver into your treasuries. By your great wisdom and trade, you have increased your wealth, and your heart has become proud in your wealth. Therefore, thus says the Lord Yahweh, because you consider yourself a god, as wise as a god, therefore, behold, I will bring strangers upon you, the most terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom and defile your splendor. They shall thrust you down into the pit, and you shall die the death of the slain in the heart of the seas. Will you still say, I am a god, in the presence of those who slay you, though you are but a man and no god, in the hands of those who wound you? You shall die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of foreigners, for I have spoken, says the Lord Yahweh. Okay. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came to me. Son of man, raise a lamentation over the king of Tyre and say to him, thus says the Lord Yahweh, you were the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. In other words, a signet ring. The king has a uniquely designed ring, and he uses it to stamp his sigil in a drop of hot wax to seal a royal decree. And so he's saying, you were my signet ring. You were that close to me, and you authorized everything I did. So you were pretty close to me. You are the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, carnelian, topaz, and jasper, chrysolite, beryl, and onyx, sapphire, carbuncle, and emerald. And wrought in gold were your settings and your engravings. On the day you were created, they were prepared. With an anointed guardian cherub I placed you. You are on the holy mountain of God. In the midst of the stones of fire you walk. That is the glowing gems. So here's a version of Eden. And who is this that he's talking about? Presumably it's a different version of Adam. He was the chosen of God, and he was perfect and so forth. And so God had him in this garden of glory where gems and treasures were just, hanging on the trees. Let's see, 14, with an anointed, specially commissioned guardian cherub I placed you. You were on the holy mountain of God, Mount Zaphon, the Mount of Assembly. In the midst of the stones of fire you walked. So he was brightly arrayed in jewels and gold and so on, as the king of Tyre no doubt was. See here, verse 15, you were blameless in your ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. In the abundance of your trade, you were filled with violence and you sinned. So I cast you as a profane thing from the mountain of God, and the guardian cherub drove you out, right? Just like in Genesis. Cherubs are the guardians of God's treasure, like the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. From the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. I cast you to the ground. I exposed you before kings to feast their eyes on you. By the multitude of your iniquities and the unrighteousness of your trade, you profaned your association. You profaned your sanctuaries. So I brought fire forth from the midst of you. It consumed you, and I turned you to ashes upon the earth. And okay, that's good enough. Okay, is that about Satan? Well, the Hebrew says as an anointed guardian cherub, but that doesn't seem to make sense. And it seems like it was probably a scribal error. With a guardian angel, I placed you. The you is the dream, the angel talking to King Saul. And he's saying that just as God told the king of Tyre that he was going to punish him by exiling him, in the same way, God is telling the king of Tyre that his days are numbered and he will be in splendor, but it'll be destroyed, just like the king of Tyre did, and the pre-fall Adam. Okay, those do not talk about the punishment of a fallen Satan. Let's see how it came to be interpreted. For instance, in an apocryphal text called The Life of Adam and Eve, also known as the Apocalypse of Moses in a slightly different edition, here is the explanation. Satan is talking to Adam. 12:1. Groaning, the devil said, "Oh, Adam, all my enmity, jealousy, and resentment is toward you, since on account of you I was expelled and alienated from my glory, which I had in heaven in the midst of the angels. On account of you I was cast out upon the earth." 12:2. Adam answered, "What have I done to you?" 12:3. What fault do I have against you? Since you have not been harmed nor injured by us, why do you persecute us? The devil answered, Adam, what are you saying to me? On account of you I was cast out from heaven. When you were formed, I was cast out from the face of God and was sent forth from the company of angels. When God blew into you the breath of life and your countenance and likeness were made in the image of God, Michael led you and made you worship in the sight of God. The Lord God then said, Behold, Adam, I have made you in our image and likeness. Having gone forth, Michael called all the angels, saying, Worship the image of the Lord God, just as the Lord God has commanded. Michael himself worshipped first. Then he called me and said, Worship the image of the God Jehovah. I answered, I do not have it within me to worship Adam. When Michael compelled me to worship, I said to him, "Why do you compel me? I will not worship him who is lower and posterior to me. I am prior to that creature. Before he was made, I had already been made. He ought to worship me." Hearing this, other angels who were under me were unwilling to worship him. Michael said, "Worship the image of God. If you do not worship, the Lord God will grow angry with you." Then the Lord God grew angry with me and sent me forth with my angels from our glory. On account of you, we were expelled from our dwelling in this world and cast out upon the earth. Immediately we were in grief, since we had been despoiled of so much glory, and we grieved to see you in such a great happiness of delights. By a trick, I cheated your wife and caused you to be expelled through her from the delights of your happiness, just as I had been expelled from my glory. Whoa, okay. So that's what prompted the fall. Uh, God creates Adam, a flesh and blood being, and he says, "Let all God's angels bow before him," which is really what worship means here. And Satan says, he takes one look at this howdy doody, this mannequin, and he says, "Wait a minute, let me get this straight. You want me to bow down to this? You must be out of your mind." And so Satan figures that God has become like Joe Biden. He's just too old and senile to do the job. And so he foments a palace revolution. Like, this guy, he's got to go. We've got to take over and run the ship ourselves. But you couldn't do that without a struggle, and he lost, right? He was outnumbered. There were three times as many. Well, I should say twice as many. He had a third, and the others had two-thirds. And they were cast out, all because of Adam, and that's why Satan is against Adam. You little bastard. If it weren't for you, we'd have our rightful place. So henceforth, Satan is the devil, right? The evil one. I mean, that's almost self-evident, but let's read a couple of quick passages nonetheless. In First Peter, if I can get the darn pages open. You might be saying, "Price, why don't you stop complaining about the thin Bible pages?" Okay, show me one with pages easier to turn. Yeah, First Peter 5, 8 through 9. "Be sober, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same experience of suffering is required of your brotherhood throughout the world. And after you've suffered a little while, the God of all glory in Christ will himself restore, establish, and strengthen you." Yeah, okay, he's just looking for a victim to devour. Then how about 1 John 3:8? This gives us a pretty fiendish devil also. It's taken for granted. Okay? "He who commits sin is of the devil," or belongs to the devil. "For the devil has sinned from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil," and so forth. And how about Ephesians 6:14 through 16? You are probably waiting for this one. Yeah. Stand therefore, having girded your loins with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the equipment of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you can quench all the flaming darts of the evil one. Okay, the evil one, right? Satan gets, I already mentioned, he gets combined with Leviathan. Let's take a look at who that is. It's we first hear of it named in 2 Kings 18:4. Okay. Talking about Hezekiah and his reforms. He removed the high places, the mountaintop shrines, and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah, little wooden stakes painted up to look like a female standing for the goddess Asherah. And he broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses has made, for until those days the people of Israel had burned incense to it. It was called Nehushtan. What was that? Well, the original meaning of that, later it was reinterpreted as a caduceus that Moses created. But the idea was that they were offering incense as to a god. And that's what it was, the serpent god, the divine serpent. Nehush is based on the Hebrew naas, serpent, and the tan is an honorific suffix like Hotep in Egyptian names. Well, Leviathan was another name for the same divine dragon, and these were the dragons whom Yahweh killed in the creation by combat story. How did Yahweh become supreme? Well, he did what the other gods were afraid of doing. He took on the chaos dragons from the ocean depths, slew them, and was given the throne. Yeah, well, that was Leviathan or Nehushtan or Rahab. Well, Levi also means serpent. It's a synonym. And the tan suffix is there again, Leviathan. Where am I getting this? Well, let's see. Nehushtan, you just heard. Let's look at Psalm 74, 13 through 14. Thou didst divide the sea by thy might. Even that's a monster in Hebrew. It's Yam, with the name of the personified sea. Thou didst break the heads of the dragons on the waters. Thou didst crush the heads of Leviathan. Thou didst give him as food for the creatures of the wilderness. Ooh. Also, Psalm 89. Where it uses an alternative name of Rahab, to whom Egypt is eventually compared metaphorically. 89. 9 and 10. Thou dost rule the raging of the sea. When its waves rise, thou stillest them. Thou didst crush Rahab like a carcass. Okay. How about Isaiah? He knows too of this dragon god. In that day, Yahweh with his hard and great and strong sword will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, the twisting serpent, and he will slay the dragon that is in the sea. Dragon? What? Could that be a mistranslation? No. He's described in great detail in Job 41. God speaking sarcastically to Job, who thinks he knows everything. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fish hook, or press down his tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope in his nose, or pierce his jaw with a hook? You're going fishing for a sea dragon. Will he make many supplications to you? Please let me go. Catch and throw back. Right. Will he speak to you soft words? Will he make a covenant with you to take him for your servant forever? Will you play with him as with a bird, or will you put him on a leash for your maidens? Verse 7, can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Lay hands on him. Think of the battle. You will not do it again. Behold, let me skip. I'll go down to verse 12. I will not keep silence concerning his limbs, or his mighty strength, or his goodly frame. Who can strip off his outer garment? Who can penetrate his double coat of mail? Who can open the doors of his face, his jaws, obviously? Round about his teeth is terror. His back is made of rows of shields, shut up closely as with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined to one another, they clasp each other and cannot be separated. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of Shahar. Out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of fire leap forth. Out of his nostrils comes forth smoke as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame comes from his mouth. In his neck abides strength, and terror dances before him. The folds of his flesh cleave together and firmly cast upon him, and immovable. His heart is hard as stone, hard as the nether millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid at the crashing there beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it does not avail, nor the spear, the dart, or the javelin. He counts iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. For him, sling stones are turned to stubble. Clubs are counted as stubble. He laughs at the rattle of javelins. His underparts are like sharp potsherds. He spreads himself like a threshing sledge on the mire. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. Behind him he leaves a shining wake. One would think that the deep to be hoary. Upon earth there is not his like. He beholds everything that is high. He is king over all the sons of men. And so there's the Godzilla of God there. Okay. Now, oddly enough, this seems to me to be the key to the idea that the snake in the Garden of Eden was the devil. Of course, it does not say that in Genesis, right? So where did Christian theology get it? Well, you see, the serpent in Eden was a kind of reduced, well, not quite demythologized, but he was Nehushtan or Leviathan, whom God had to best in combat. He was the dragon. And so he did. And what we have in the Garden of Eden is a much later version of that, in which there's just a kind of contest of cleverness between God and the snake. The snake seems to have outwit God. He doesn't want them to eat of that apple. Well, I'm going to make sure they do. Hey, lady, you see that fruit? But the joke's on him, because God finds out readily enough who's the guilty party and says, well, you were a fiery serpent, a seraphim once, but I'm making you just a plain old snake crawling on the ground. I hope you enjoy it. So God easily dispatched the snake, punishing for his mischief. But that was a reduced version of God having to take off the gloves and engage in hand to claw combat with Leviathan / Rahab / Nehushtan. So once you have made Leviathan into Satan, and you're reducing Satan Leviathan to simply Mr. Snake, then you've opened the way for saying, oh, does that mean I can skip a step and say that the devil, or I should say Satan, was the serpent somehow? No, you can't leapfrog it like that. But I think somebody did, and that's why we eventually got the idea that the serpent of Eden was Satan. Never says it. Okay, with that, let me catch my breath and invite our friend David Scurlock to join us.
Hello, everybody. Peace to you from Jesus Christ and the Christ in me and the Christ in you. And hello, Dr. Price. How you doing? Greetings from Joliet.
Doing fine. Good to have you.
All right. You pretty much covered everything that I've studied, but I never heard about the apocalypse of Moses before. And that's probably where they get the, that he was jealous of mankind, the whole thing in the movies about the monkeys, why are we going to worship the monkeys,
Yeah, like in the book, like prophecy from...
Right.
Yeah, that I nearly mentioned that already, that they're jealous of humanity.
Right. I don't know. The way I take it, well, first let me say, I'm about not believing so much in the Old Testament, because I believe that was a hodgepodge of all these ideas of the area coming together into one religion, and then that formed, and all these precepts are built upon each other to create Satan.
Yes.
You got him first starting out as the prosecuting attorney, then all of a sudden he's the adversary. Now he's the one who lays stumbling blocks in front of humanity. And maybe everybody who does take on, it's like putting on a mask. Okay, I'm going to take on the role of adversary in somebody's life and be jealous of them and put stumbling blocks in front of them. And maybe that's where Satan comes from today, and a lot of people ask me, what about Satan? I think he lives in the hearts of men, until you animate a deity, an individual person, you got all these systems of belief. You got the 10 gods of Sumer, you got 11 in Egypt, and you got 12 Olympians, gods, the Nephilim, or whatever you would call them, but maybe there is something to sons of angel versus sons of man. Jesus made the distinction, I'm the son of man, and then he also made the distinction saying, telling the Pharisees that your father's the devil. And then they asked him if he was a god, Jesus was asked that, and he says, it's like you said that, you are gods in the book, in the garden story, and so it is as you say it is.
Mm.
He's always correcting them. I don't know if the purpose of Jesus was to come down and correct, or to get us away from literally taking every word for word and trying to, make it all fit together into one cohesive story.
Mm.
But, I believe that was the purpose of the Bible, is to make everybody happy so that they could have a super religion of Rome to control the people.
You mean the compilation of the canon?
Right. Putting together in around 300, acceptable books and unacceptable books,
Mm.
Heresy books versus, acceptable Orthodox books, and the first century church got along without a Bible.
Right.
So,
yes.
and they were doing just fine.
Mm.
So, I mean, all of a sudden the Bible comes, then we have the Dark Ages, and then you got a Latin word in the Greek, translation for Satan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of making stuff up so that it'll fit, in the Bible.
Like,
So,
for instance, Lucifer, that's the
Right.
light bearer. They didn't take that to mean Satan until centuries later, because Jesus is called the bright and morning star, which was what Lucifer referred to. And after decades, if not centuries afterward, you have bishops named Lucifer.
Yeah.
They thought that
Or
was Satan.
Lucius.
Can you imagine? Oh boy.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the way I figure it, if Jesus wanted us to study a book, he would have mentioned a book. He said the Spirit's coming, or the Comforter, and that's who will teach you all things. Well, we can learn all things from a book, or from real life, or from other people's lives, according to what the Spirit inside of us would tell us what is the meaning of that in this religious thought process. The system, like the Persians, the Sumerians, everybody had a different way to describe the heavenly thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I believe like fear would be the Satan, or hatred or something like that coming into somebody's mind, and then they take on the role, of this deity,
Yeah,
I don't know. It just seems similar that all these different things talk about fallen, whatever, sons of God, or that they become man. And then are they equipped to deal with our emotions just being made man? So, I mean, are we longer in the human body than they are? Or, if you believe in reincarnation, we come back and we experience the same things over and over and over again, the growth of man and the knowledge of man. Some people are saying that we're stumbling on a golden age today, and that, people represent their family lines, some people are saying that, I can't make heads or tails of it. So I choose to look at it critically, like Doc Taylor does, that, all this stuff was written down. They didn't even have a toilet till, I mean, how are they going to figure out all this stuff?
Yeah, I love the Bible, but and not despite its fragmentary scrapbook nature, but because of it, there's just all sorts of things on the menu in there, some of which alienate us, but that's good, because it's kind of like what Martin Luther said. You realize that your standards are not those of the Bible, but it may be that you're right and they were wrong. But often there's stuff that's wise, no matter whether it came from God or a
Right.
human writer or whatever. The book speaks for itself, and it says a lot of things, some of which you would want to accept, some of which you wouldn't, like all books. What's the big deal? It's funny that that in the Gospel of John, Jesus says to his critics, you search the scriptures because in them you think you have eternal life. But you're ignoring me. Well, isn't that still the case? People aren't, in the first place, Christians. They're biblicists. And if Jesus wasn't in the Bible, they wouldn't believe in him either. It's very ironic.
Well, yeah, the Bible does its job as far as making you aware of Jesus if you're a Christian, I mean, but I can't really take literally the stories because they're not written by true disciples, and they're written 300 years later. And man always does this. They get a story and then they got to exaggerate it and build it up into a religion, And
they think they've enhanced it. Well, they may make it more spectacular, but I once wrote this admittedly spurious Easter account where the women come to the tomb and the angel is sort of chewing them out, and he's saying, wait a minute, let me get this straight. It's important to you that Jesus rose from the dead. Why? I said, well, because then we know everything he said was true, and he's the Son of God. And well, wait a minute, hold on. You mean you need a miracle to convince you that the stuff in the Sermon on the Mount is true? That you'd just be just as happy not to pay any attention to it if Jesus wasn't risen from the dead? I'm beginning to think you hope he hasn't risen from the dead, so you're off the hook. And I sometimes wonder if that's not what's going on. It matters whether the stuff rings true to you, not so much who said it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, all right, here's you got against heresies, Irenaeus or whatever, and then all of a sudden all the Gnostic texts are evil,
Yeah.
But I read them, I've thoroughly read them, and I glean what I can out of the text, as far as putting together the mystery we're talking about is Satan the sons of angel, and do the descendants now rule earth, and is it, the same people we're talking about throughout all the different belief systems? Is there an arch evil force in the universe? I would have to say no. That man's heart is what's evil. That we're good and evil people, but we like to blame it on a evil force, and don't want to accept the consequences of our own choices and actions. But it was just evil coming upon me. Now, I believe?
Go ahead.
I believe there is a force in the universe that punishes or that raises up if you do good. Probably, yeah. It's consequences. Now, where is God? God is here, the higher thought of man. All right, and everybody. And do we develop that, or which dog do we feed, the bad part or the good part,
Yeah. It seems to me that the devil and demon language is helpful, but not as a scapegoat. There you're actually, it's like the Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it. No. You can't slide out of it like that. But I heard the other day that Elon Musk said that George Soros was like Magneto in the X-Men, that he hated the human race and all that. That's an apt comparison. But he isn't literally Magneto or the devil, but that imagery does put things into perspective. and like the principalities and powers. Well, originally that had to do with demons and astrology and all that, but it doesn't matter because it does speak to the fact that we are governed by superhuman forces, namely organizations that survive with or without us. There's a point to that imagery. It's very wise, but to take it literally, I think actually evacuates it of the usefulness of it.
Yeah. And the point that you see in the ancient writings, the same emotions that govern them govern us today: jealousy, fears, hatreds,
Right.
Greediness. It's all the same struggle throughout mankind. Is that what we're trying to accomplish? Is getting over these emotional responses, or are those the actual spirits that are involved?
I don't know if it makes a difference. Like in First Peter, it says, "Resist the devil, and he'll flee from you," and all that. Well, he's talking about your own attitudes and dispositions. It's pretty clear, because how could you resist the devil? Well, by strength of will. Well, then why even bring the devil into it? You need that to protect yourself from your own impulses. Or in the Epistle of James, he says, "Whence come disputes and battles and warfare? Isn't it because you lust for, you covet what you don't have, and then if you'll do anything you have to get it?" Wait a minute, where's the devil in all that? He apparently didn't think he needed to bring the devil in. That's
right. Man can fall on his own. He doesn't need any help from the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I like what you brought up about the Zoroastrianism, though, the polarizing of the good and evil. And what you didn't mention was Baal, being an alter personality of Yahweh,
Yes, the days will come when you will no longer call me my Baal. What? And there's a Canaanite text where El, the father god of the Canaanites, says, "The name of my son," who's usually Baal, is Yah, an abbreviation for Yahweh. Did they even at first think there was any difference? It's the same names. And it is like the two sides. You choose.
Right. And then the thought about, all right, Yahweh is a champion of man, and it's almost the same as, Enki, I mean, it's almost the same thing. I mean,
yes, I think so.
I'm a writer and I study character, and then you can see the similarities of the different characters.
Yeah, literary study is very important in looking at the Bible. It's you really need to know what a metaphor is and character motivation for it to make any sense.
Right, and the historical beliefs of the time. That's very, very important.
Even Luther knew that, right? I mean, it's easy to say, well, we're past that, but he said, hey, the grammatico-historical method, you got to understand what people meant by what they said. It may not be the same. Like in one of the Psalms, it says, "Thou preventest me behind and before." What's he stopping you from doing? No, it means he goes before you. He's watching out for you like a scout, but the words have changed in a different historical period. So that's just a microcosmic little bitty example.
Yeah. So we're like trying to figure out the mystery, I guess, is what we're doing. Trying to put it together. And it's easy to categorize things as physical, like everything in a magic ceremony or a religious service, which are the same things. You got elements of symbols meaning different things. Put them all together with your incantation, and then you got something, right? I mean, how are you going to categorize Satan? It's just, there's force, there's obviously intelligence, because people get what they deserve. You know, that's the only way I can describe that there is a God or there is anything, is that things seem to work out the right way in the end.
Though often you're laying the trap for yourself, that what you're doing is just because of the conditions of the world and the way people are, it's going to boomerang on you.
Yeah, you're expecting something bad to happen if you do something bad or something, you know what I mean? You know, but who knows? I mean, from my experience, you know, when I do bad things, it means that I'm taking away concentration from doing good things. So, you know, I'm going to end up with bad results, you know, and luck favors the you know, the bold and the initiated and motivated, you know. You create more luck for yourself by doing things.
You know, speaking of literature and such, I think one of the most profound morality tales is that of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where Jekyll starts out with this idea of entire sanctification. Is there some way to eradicate the evil nature? And he does isolate it from the good nature. But what he doesn't realize is that the evil takes over. You're just alternating. And then once he becomes Hyde and does all these awful things, he feels like he's got a clear conscience when he reverts to Jekyll, because he's scapegoating his own evil by laying it all on Hyde, whereas he's worse than Hyde by doing this.
Yeah,
I just find that so fascinating.
You go back to Yahweh and Baal again, you know.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
AKA apocalypse.
Yeah. People, you know, they get distressed and they think weird things, you know, superstition, and, you know, it's all bad luck. It's all, you know, this, that, and the other, you know. Sometimes it's just, you know, I believe we're in a simulation, okay? A simulation. Everybody from birth forms an image of what a chair looks like. And it might be different for everybody according to what they were brought up in. You know, and when they were a baby, what do I picture this object as? You know, is it a good object, or is it a bad object, or is it just a neutral object? You know, but yeah,
I got a great example of that. I've always loathed the idea of eating fruits and vegetables to the point where I'm a neurotic. I have gotten to the point where I can eat grapes, apples, and pears, but that's about it. And I cannot even imagine eating a tomato, for, you know, God forbid. So I have my own little weird world, and that's only the least of it. But yeah,
so how do you eat spaghetti?
Oh, well, I can stand that, but I have to really fortify myself.
Oh, you have to psych yourself up?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Well, yeah. I fear we are probably close to done. We're going to be taxing the patience of the listeners.
Right.
But I do have some comments here. People seem to have liked it. Yeah, this is great. Okay, well, I guess we should probably be done. I really appreciate your input and your willingness to appear.
Yeah, I was on the show before, but I had put up the icon instead of the pictures, but I apologize for that.
No,
but,
I remember.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in the future shows. You know,
bet.
I got a lot to talk about. You know, I studied this my whole life, and about the last 3 years, Dr. Taylor tutored me to fill in the blanks.
Yeah, he's mighty brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting some comments here. It was a fun show, good show, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm glad to see that. I certainly found it so.
Well, I think that I found the devil.
Uh-oh.
The double.
Let's see.
I don't ever
Oh, there it is.
Little girls.
Why not, Mama?
Because little girls are devil. Mama.
That's right.
Astrology. I don't believe in that sort of thing personally. Astronomy is one of the many tools of the devil.
Ah,
It's the devil.
Kathy
I want you to
Bates.
stay away from her, you hear me?
Yeah, she's the devil. Sure.
I forbid you to talk to that enchantress. She's the devil.
I've never seen that movie. I know what it is.
Beautiful woman in the world.
Water boy.
She was the
Ah.
devil. She's the most beautiful woman in the world. Oh, please don't hurt me.
Yeah, I like their boobies too.
Devil. The chickens are coming home to roost, Bobby Boucher. You reap the fruit of your selfish ways. You gonna lose all your fancy foosball games, and you're gonna fail your big exam because school is
The devil? Everything
right.
is the devil to you, mama.
Mama, wouldn't Ben Franklin invent electricity?
That's nonsense. I invented electricity. Ben Franklin is the devil.
That's right.
Not for the devil. It's for my
You
father.
know, she. Oh, there is a. Oh yeah, Adam Sandler plays the son of the devil in Little Nicky or whatever it is.
Yeah. Little
Yeah, I've
man.
never seen that one either. I just happen to know about it. Oh boy, sheesh.
There's this
Somebody
other
pointed
movie.
out to me once that they saw a poster I had of H.P. Lovecraft, and they said, "Who's that? Adam Sandler?" And I said, "Oh no, you're right. It looks like." Anyway, well, anyway, I should probably get going. My voice is beginning to get raspy.
All right, Dr. Price, I'll see you on a future episode.
Okay, you bet. Yeah,
All right.
everybody, we'll be back at 6.
All right, no
We
problem.
will have not less, we will have more globalization.